Welcome to English Easy Hub. Join us as we ignite the flames of your English learning journey together.
Please subscribe to watch and embark on your English learning journey. Don't miss out on the exciting content. In this conversation, Simon seeks guidance from his teacher on common spoken English mistakes that learners often make. Throughout the discussion, Simon expresses his struggles with various aspects of English, such as tense usage, word choice, pronunciation, and sentence structure. The teacher provides insightful explanations and practical advice, helping Simon recognize where he has gone wrong and offering strategies for improvement. The conversation spans a variety of topics, including grammar errors, pronunciation challenges, and the importance of fluency in natural speech.
Hey, teacher. I've been thinking about my spoken English recently, and I noticed I often get stuck or make mistakes. Could you help me identify the most common oral mistakes that learners like me make?
Sure, Simon. One of the most common mistakes is using incorrect word order in sentences. English is quite strict about the structure of sentences, especially when it comes to tenses, modal verbs, and adverbs. For example, a mistake like saying, "I always go to the gym yesterday" instead of "I went to the gym yesterday" is quite frequent. Have you ever had trouble with this?
Yeah, I've made that mistake a few times. I tend to mix up the tense when I'm speaking quickly. But what about word choice? Are there any words that learners confuse with each other?
Absolutely. A lot of learners mix up words like boring and bored or excited and exciting. For example, I'm boring instead of I'm bored, or this movie is exciting when they mean I'm excited. The trick is to remember that ing is usually for the thing causing the feeling, and ed is for the feeling itself. Does it help clarify it?
Oh, that makes sense. I think I sometimes use the wrong form because I'm thinking in my native language. But what about pronunciation? Are there common pronunciation errors I should watch out for?
Definitely. One of the most common issues is with vowel sounds, especially with words like ship versus sheep. Learners often mispronounce these because many languages don't have the same distinctions. Another tricky one is the th sound, which doesn't exist in many languages. So think might sound like tink, and this might sound like this. Have you ever found these sounds challenging?
Yes, especially the th sound. I catch myself saying this instead of this sometimes. But what about phrases or expressions? Are there any common mistakes in that area?
Good question. Many learners use I'm agree instead of I agree. The verb agree doesn't need am in front of it. Also, make a question is a mistake. The correct phrase is ask a question. It's interesting how small prepositions or auxiliary verbs can trip learners up. Have you found yourself using phrases like that?
Yeah, make a question definitely comes up for me when I'm speaking too fast. What about when we're trying to sound more natural? Any tips for sounding more fluent and less robotic?
Fluency often comes down to rhythm and intonation. In English, we tend to stress certain words more than others. If you focus on stressing content words like nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, while de-emphasizing function words like articles, prepositions, and auxiliary verbs, your speech will sound much more natural. Also, try to link your words together rather than pausing between each one. Have you practiced linking your speech?
I've heard of linking before, but I haven't really focused on it. Do you have any examples?
Sure. For instance, what do you think can sound like what do you think? Or how are you doing might become how are you doing. It's all about blending the sounds together. This takes some practice, but it'll really help you sound more fluent. Do you find this easy or tricky?
That sounds interesting. I think I might need more practice with this linking thing. How about when we're listening to native speakers, do they make mistakes too?
Absolutely, Simon. Native speakers make mistakes all the time, especially with informal speech. They might drop words, use slang incorrectly, or misuse idioms. For example, I could care less is often used when people mean I couldn't care less. It's funny how sometimes native speakers themselves mess up, but it doesn't affect their fluency. Did you ever notice any mistakes like that when listening?
Yes. I've heard people say could care less, but I didn't realize it was a mistake. I guess even natives get lazy with language. Are there any other idiomatic mistakes that learners often make?
Absolutely. A big one is with the expression, I'm looking forward to meet you, which should be, I'm looking forward to meeting you. After looking forward to, you always need the ing form of the verb. Another one is confusing take part in and participate in, where both are correct, but learners tend to overuse one or the other. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. I've used looking forward to meet before, so I'll have to pay more attention to that. What about modal verbs? Any mistakes that come up with those?
Great question. A common mistake with modals is saying I can't do this instead of I can do this. You should never use to after modals like can, should, or must. Another one is I should to go instead of I should go. The infinitive doesn't need to after these modals. Have you ever made that mistake?
Yes, I've definitely said I can't do it before. That's a good one to watch out for. What about when we want to emphasize something in a sentence? Are there any common mistakes with that?
Emphasis in English often involves using auxiliary verbs like do for present simple or past simple tense. For example, I do like pizza, or I did tell you. But learners sometimes forget to use do for emphasis, which can make the sentence sound flat. Emphasis helps show emotion or intensity in the language. Have you tried using emphasis like that?
I've heard of using do for emphasis but never thought about it much. I'll try incorporating it more. What about using there is and there are? Any common mistakes with those?
That's a great question. Many learners say things like there's many people instead of there are many people. The key is remembering that there is singular and there are is plural. It's a subtle mistake, but important for clarity. Have you noticed yourself using theirs with plural nouns?
Yes, I've definitely used theirs with plural nouns before. I'll be more careful about that. One last thing, what about using since and for? I often get confused with those.
That's a classic mix-up. Use since for a specific point in time, like since 2010 or since yesterday, and for a duration, like for 2 hours or for a week. A mistake learners make is saying since 2 hours instead of for 2 hours. It's all about knowing whether you're talking about a time period or a specific time. Does that clear it up?
I see now. I've definitely used since in place of for. This conversation has really opened my eyes to a lot of things I need to work on. Thanks so much for your insights.
You're welcome, Simon. You've asked some great questions today. Keep practicing and don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're part of the learning process. Let me know if you ever need more tips.
The conversation highlights the critical areas where English learners frequently make mistakes. From misusing tenses and mixing up word forms to difficulties with pronunciation and modal verbs, the teacher's detailed explanations and examples offer Simon valuable tools for improving his spoken English. A key takeaway from the discussion is the importance of practice in mastering natural speech patterns, such as linking words and using correct emphasis. Additionally, Simon learns the significance of using the right prepositions and understanding the nuances of expressions like since and for. Overall, the conversation emphasizes that language learning is an ongoing process that involves awareness of common errors and a commitment to improving over time.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share to keep the English learning journey alive.